Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Pigskin Breakdown Show. We got a fun repeat guest. We got William Penn football coach Marc Benavidez joining us today. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing great, man. Doing great. We've got a game coming up here, and it's bittersweet seeing everybody move in, all the non-athletes or other sports move in today, and it's over. We're right in the thick of things already.
It is over. Now, with moving day for the rest of campus, when did the football team report?
So we have new guys report on the 1st, and then report on the 5th. And so we'll have the first few days of just getting all new guys, transfers, or freshmen just acclimated to college in general, more walkthrough times and everything. So it's been, I don't know the math right now. My head's going to explode here pretty soon, but been here in a couple weeks.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to out of the busy camp schedule.
But yeah, we're in a spot right now where we actually have a scrimmage tonight, but practice this morning and a handful of different practices, all throughout the last few weeks, but 1 week away. At the point right now, you've got one shot for 2026, and it's right in front of us.
That's awesome. You're going to kick it off for small college schools here in Iowa, Thursday against Graceland. Could you talk about maybe some of the incoming freshmen, transfers you had coming in this year, and what kind of production you look out of those guys?
I mean, just overall roster, we've got a number of guys returning. If you go look on the defensive side of the ball, almost every starter from a year ago is coming back. We only had a couple guys that were seniors, and even a lot of the quote-unquote backups are back. So very, very deep on defense. Specialists, a lot of those guys are back. We had an all-conference snapper. You guys are aware of Vandenberg. He's coming back, and our kicker. And so a lot of returners there. On offense, a lot of new faces. We had a lot of studs, a lot of guys, a lot of great stats last year that were seniors. Like you guys know, Des Loring scoring 1 million touchdowns, and our quarterback having 1 million touchdowns and had a lot of success. And now we're in a spot where we've got returners competing with some freshmen or transfers or to replace some of those seniors on offense last year. And so overall, a lot of experience on defense, a lot of new faces on offense. Today, this next week, I'd say collectively there's 11 open spots on offense, and it's going to get decided here the next few days.
Yeah, sure. The scrimmage probably tell a little bit tonight. I'm sure you got a plan there to mix and match with all sorts of different lineups there too. Well, let's just dive right into week one then too. So could you tell us a little bit more about your week one opponent? Jay talked about that it is Graceland.
Yeah.
Let's just dive in right now.
They were a very different team than what their record probably showed. They didn't have throughout the entire season, not a ton of wins. However, they played a lot of teams very close. Their very last game, they just barely lost to Baker. Baker had a last second touchdown to win it. And for us, we had a lot of success against them, but the weather played a factor. They're gonna be ready to go. I fully expect them to have a great season. And I know here in a week, we've got to make sure we're 100% prepared and ready for what they're going to bring at us. I'd expect them to be a team that's full of transfers and a bunch of new faces. I know they've had some talented players that didn't even play against us a year ago. And so the important thing for our squad is to understand, regardless of how much success we had last season, they've taken it to us in the past. And we got to understand this is the biggest game of the year. Not just because it's home opener, not just because it's against Graceland, Hart North team, but it's the next opponent, the next game. And so regardless of what happened last year, guys got to be ready to go and get after it. And at the end of the day, as coaches, we can see things in scrimmages. We can see things in practice. We can see guys execute or make mistakes. But what are you going to do when the lights are out there in front of you? What are you going to do when the bullets are flying? How are you going to react and respond? And we just got to make sure our guys are out there prepared as coaches. And hopefully our guys can go out there and get it.
Great. Yeah, you just hope they execute. So the Heart of America Conference is just such a stout football conference and athletics as a whole. So JD had Commissioner Nick Rule on the podcast. He was talking about how elevating the whole conference is as a whole and all athletics, football specifically. How do you go about the schematic side of things with playing with these opponents and just competing at the highest level year in and year out? And we talked about this in the first time you're on, building sustained success. How do you go into that here in
the 4th season?
How do you continually build that as you keep moving through the Heart of America Conference?
Yeah, I think an important thing to understand, or important thing to reinforce that everybody's understanding, that the biggest game is the next one. And so every year, every semester, we talk about our schedule as a team day by day. We talk about our schedule on the field on Saturdays and whatnot. And we looking at certain dates and certain games. Obviously, got Grandview on Halloween. And there's obviously certain dates and games that are quote unquote bigger than others or whatever. But at the end of the day, every Saturday, in this case, Thursday, that game's the most important game. And also understanding that regardless what your team did last year, it doesn't matter whether we won 4 games or we won 11. That was last year. And same thing week by week, regardless if we won last week or lost last week. That was last week. We have to worry about this week and continue to push on. And to me, that's kind of how it's been my entire career. I think us as coaches, an important part of our job is to, you don't want to have to motivate players to play football and motivate guys to go try to win, but you've got to give that additional motivation whenever it is August 27th and guys are tired of having to go to class all the time and having to wake up early for weights or meetings and breaking up with a girlfriend or whatever, things wear on them. And so us as coaches, it's important to make sure that we can give that additional motivation. From a scheme standpoint, we're in a profession where people bounce around all the time. And every year I've coached, I'm going against coaches that it's their first year or new defensive coordinators. And this upcoming season, our first opponent, Graceland, for the most part, staff is relatively the same. However, they were 1 year in last year, and being the first game of the year, things will change. They might change scheme completely on us. Who knows? You're going to change scheme based off who you have as a personnel standpoint. Our next opponent, Missouri Valley College, we didn't go against them last year. Last year, they had a new head coach. Going into the game this year, they'll have a new defensive coordinator. And so we'll be their first game. We have no clue exactly what we're going to face, what we're going to do. And we have to make sure with our scheme we can adapt. We got to make sure we have rules. What we do on offense, for an example, we've got our offense and our scheme and things that we do, but we've got answers for when we see certain things. And our guys, again, it's all rules-based, making sure our guys understand, okay, they do this, we need to do this, or I have this read because of this, or whatever it might be. And so week in, week out, especially NAIA level, coaches, that they're going to move around, they're going to bounce around. You've got to be prepared for every single season to go face new coaches.
You talk about this being a new season. I want to kind of rewind to last season a little bit. So going into last season, you guys were picked 4th in the North. Graceland was actually one of the teams ahead of you there. This year, as far as the polls go and the votes go, you guys are coming in at 2. Is that a message you have to push across to the kids? Is that something that the players focus on? And you got to make sure that, hey, we don't get big heads or anything like that?
Yes. I mean, to an extent, I think all of our guys understand we haven't beat Grandview in a number of years. I think we're the last Heart North team to beat Grandview. And it's been about 10 years now, I think. They've been obviously dominant. So they've set the standard and set the bar up really high. And so for us, number one, we're not perfect. We haven't been perfect. We're right now on a losing streak in the playoffs. And for our guys, just simply understand, I don't really care what teams rank us as, where we're at. All that stuff's kind of fake. It comes down to who can actually get it done on Saturdays or Thursday night, like we're about to have here pretty soon. And so there's some external motivators. I'd rather us be ranked 4th preseason instead of 2nd, but regardless, those things don't matter. Who's going to execute? Who's going to go do their job at 7:00 at night, Thursday? Hopefully our guys are getting after it. Hopefully the guys are doing it. And again, as a coach, you want to go motivate guys to want to win, but there's definitely things we can get for extra motivation.
So you said a lot of your returning production on defense is going to be back this year. Is that something too that goes into your coaching philosophy is, okay, this year we're more an offensive team. Now we can lean more heavily on our defensive experience. How do you adapt with new guys coming in and anybody on offense that's been sticking out to you that maybe would take over the production that you are losing at quarterback and running back this season?
Yeah, no, it's a team game. You need all 3 phases, but realistically every year us as a staff will talk about where our roster is, who are our top guys. For the most part, as a head coach, I call plays on offense, but there is a lot to it. Like at times we've got to do what we can to control the clock and keep our defense off the field and try to simply get first downs instead of taking long shots. As a staff, I feel like we work really well together. Our staff our full-time guys have been together my entire time here at William Penn. And so we all understand where we're at. We all understand what the ins and outs of our different special teams units and whatnot. But yeah, looking at the roster again, defense, we've got a number of guys back, a lot of that production there. And then we brought other guys in to add on top of that. Offensively, we've got a number of guys that were pseudo starters. Maybe they started a couple games, especially like skill receivers. Maybe our personnel is a little bit different going into the game. So we got a number of guys that played quite a bit last year. However, again, nobody scored 30-something touchdowns is on a roster right now. And so I'm very confident we got some very talented guys that can get it done. At the end of the day, it comes down to O-line and D-line, what those guys can get done, what those guys can do. And we've got some new faces in those spots. And at the end of the day, again, we'll find out exactly where we're at after we play that first game. I'm confident our guys can get some stuff done and have success on offense. But in terms of overall production, I care about winning games. So whether it's 7-0 or 47-48, we want to come on top.
get the W for sure. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the staff that you've got there. So you said you do have some full-time guys. It's Coach Burns. He's a defensive coordinator. We got a co-defensive coordinator and Coach Byers. Grant's offensive coordinator as well. And then it looks like you got a couple different assistants, 2 assistants at PGAs. Is that correct?
Yeah, Nico Robinson. So he's been here my entire time too. He's a full-time. He's a receivers coach. Howard Huerta, who played here my first couple of years. Logan Myers, O-line coach, who played here underneath me for a few years. Turner Ellis, who was an assistant guy that played here again underneath me my first year here. Monty Tony, a guy that played for me at my previous school. So again, a lot of continuity and a lot of guys understand, hey, this is the expectation, this is the standard. Our staff meetings on a Sunday after a game or next Friday, we'll talk about everything, make sure we're on the same page. We meet a lot. We socialize, we're together quite often. And I think that's something that's helped us out drastically, having that improvement, just simply us all being on the same page. It's a profession and we're all men with egos at times. But I think collectively, despite that, our guys all want to see the program be successful. They want to see us win games. And so putting that ego aside and understanding, hey, this is what's most important. I think everybody's on the same page. When again, we've had seasons in my coaching career, I've had seasons where offense has killed it and defense has been kind of slagging or vice versa. We're all on the same page. Got to be supportive of all 3 phases of the game. Make sure special teams is extremely important. Making sure that we're flipping the field when we need to. And so again, collectively as a staff, great group of guys. It's a big reason we were successful last year and a big reason why hopefully we're successful in the future.
How do you approach that as a head coach where you had a lot of success at all the stops you've been at? Obviously with that is going to turn into coaches maybe going on to step up their role with another organization or maybe within your own organization. How do you approach that as a head coach? Obviously you want to be supportive of the guys as they move through their career.
Yeah.
But I guess, just can you talk a little bit about how you go about that?
Yeah, no, 100%. Even this past year, we lost a GA to a full-time position in the conference. I would say myself as a head coach, one of the most important duties I have is try to get guys better jobs in the future. And there's a number of guys on our staff that have had job opportunities where I'll give my opinion. Maybe it's a great opportunity. Maybe it's not, in my opinion. At the end of the day, they got to do whatever it's best for them. They got to be able to provide and support their family and themselves. But it'd be ignorant for me to think that all these guys are going to be with me every single year for the rest of my life. It's just not how it works. When guys have goals, whether it's being a head coach themselves or being a GA, eventually being a coordinator or calling plays or whatever it is, ideally, again, you just find a group of guys that are like-minded, that will work hard, that understand the programs, what's most important. And then myself as a head coach, I think that I can get more out of some of those guys when they understand, hey, I'll be the first one to go give a call to this AD or this head coach for you to go get this full-time job or that job or whatever it is. When I've had, I believe, 12 guys that have gone Division II or Division I since 2018 assistants. And that's huge in this profession, just simply having that network, having that coaching tree where I've gotten calls or gotten texts about, hey, this person is looking to transfer. Are you looking for a guy at this spot or whatever? And again, just the brotherhood in the profession is a big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. Just that family type atmosphere. And again, I'm extremely grateful for the coaches that we have, what they've done. Again, we want to give that family environment from a work standpoint. Coach Burns, he had a daughter the day right before halftime when we were facing Mid-America Nazarene and found out his wife getting into labor pregame meal and didn't really affected what we were doing, but didn't really hurt us too much. Our guys are on the same page. Our guys are doing whatever we got to do to go make sure the programs are being successful and help these kids out in life and make sure we're getting wins.
I think William Penn in general just is a really tight-knit community. You can tell that the whole city of Oskaloosa seems to really be on the same page with that. I want to talk a little bit about Coach Garth, and he's the recruiting coordinator, and I guess this probably ties into all coaches as well. But what does recruiting look like during the summer camp time? Is there any sort of dead period or anything like that? Could you shed some light for the fans about that?
Yeah, we're NAIA, so there's no such thing as dead period. It's work nonstop, 365. So we'll evaluate things every year, every semester, and there's times where we'll tweak things or change things. Recruiting now is completely different than what it was 5 years ago. There's things where you want to go win games. It comes down to the players and getting the best players you possibly can. We'll talk about strategies and positions of need. For us, we want to try to establish young freshmen and get those guys to develop. If you go look at our roster now, eventually we'll have the roster online, but you go look at the roster, we have a ton of juniors. A huge junior class right now of guys that we got here as freshmen and they developed. And a number of those guys were all conference guys a year ago as sophomores. And so we're in a spot where we want to focus. Before I got here, we had some some big connections. Coach Burns, Coach Garth, they came with me from my previous school. And there's a number of hot spots where we would recruit in the past and had success in my previous school. And we continued on with that. Flip side of that is the state of Iowa. We would love to get our entire roster from the state of Iowa. However, it's extremely competitive to get Iowa kids. As you guys know, there's so many small schools in the state, and there's so many small schools in the state that have been successful. Last year, we won 11 games, but there's probably 4 or 5 other Iowa schools that won 11 plus games last year that were NAIA or Division III. And so we're in, obviously, Upper Iowa having success. And so we're competing with a number of schools to try to get those guys. That is 100% a huge focus of ours moving forward, is more local guys. But we also talk as a staff of ROI. What's our best return on investment? Where can we allocate most of our time, our energy, our effort? In summertime, it's great to find and see local kids and have that first initial contact of, okay, hey, yeah, what are you looking for in a school? Come on and visit, and simply meet those guys. And then as the season goes on, obviously getting visits, getting people on campus, getting people to hopefully watch us in games at home, seeing our people tailgate and have a good time and hopefully win a bunch of games. And then it's a little bit more intimate as you get into December and springtime of getting people on visits and making sure they can kind of see the vision of what we see them at. But Coach Garth does a great job. All of our coaches do a great job recruiting. And if you don't recruit, you're not going to win games. I think that's a big thing we end up bringing here.
Yeah, and building a stronger network within Iowa is great. It's definitely a key goal to have in the future. What would you say so far has been like your best quote unquote pipeline states that I know you've had some success out of, I believe, Texas and California. What would you consider to be your pipeline states for William Penn?
Yeah. So Coach Garth, as an example, he's from Texas, and my previous school had a number of guys from Texas all throughout the state. Florida, Coach Burns had coached in Florida at one point and recruited Florida. And so Dade, Broward County, Tampa area. And then, like you mentioned, California, that's a spot where we'll typically get some California JUCO transfers. At the end of the day, we've got to focus on certain regions or certain geographical locations where, one, maybe it's easy to travel here. Like I'm from St. Louis and lived in Kansas City. That's a relatively easy drive. Certain spots like Houston, there's really cheap, easy, direct flights. And so for us, we got to make sure it's something that works. And then during the whole recruiting process, you also want to make sure the kid understands, like, hey, is this the right fit for you? I don't want to bring people in here where it's not a good fit for them. You know, culturally, got to understand Oskaloosa, Iowa is very different than maybe a large metropolitan area. Is this going to work for you? What are you trying to accomplish in life? Are you trying to get a degree? Are you trying to get a job in the future? Trying to get an internship? Are you trying to make money? Are you trying to win a bunch of games? We just got to ultimately, if we're going to bring somebody from not here in the state, make sure that those guys align with what we're trying to accomplish as a program.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, appreciate you shedding some light on that.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Oh, I'm sure there's so many stones that you have to try to turn over. I want to talk about another thing quick, maybe unrelated necessarily to the football program, but I know the Urban Edge Network is really putting in a lot of work into making the NAIA game more accessible for their fans and being able to that. Do you talk about that with your recruits? You let them know, like, hey, if you come play at William Penn, your family can watch our games for free. They don't have to save up plane tickets to go to Oskaloosa 6 times a year. Is that a selling point?
100%. And on top of that, outside of just what they do, our staff here at William Penn does an amazing job with all the broadcasting that they do here. We're very fortunate to have the facilities we have and the resources we have here. Some schools, even in our conference, don't quite have the same capability when it comes to their cameras and broadcasting and whatnot. And so we're extremely fortunate we have here. And if you simply go and look at our games from last year, it's a legit setup where we'll have play-by-play and you'll see the play. Maybe we scored a touchdown. They're showing a replay as our field goal team's going out there. And it's something that is great for people that are from not just down the road where a family can go watch games. My mother lives 3.5 hours away, or again, St. Louis area, and she can watch every single game from her phone. And so it's a great tool for us, and something especially in our conference has greatly helped our brand. Again, making it the big time where we're at. It's been huge.
Nick talked a lot about that with JD yesterday and how proud he is of all the work that is done. And I do want to shout out, I believe his name, it's Jordan Lester. He's kind of runs the media stuff there down in Oski, and he's been nothing but gracious to us, but just seeing all your guys' work on social media, it is tremendous. And I'm sure that is, like you said, definitely a selling point for Penn.
Yeah, more eyeballs. That's the main goal here. Everybody wants to get their stuff out on social media and being able to watch these small school games. Just something you haven't been able to do in years past. So it's great that they're really backing you guys and giving you more visibility. I guess just we touched a little bit about your roster, your season. I just wanted to know, how has life changed for you after winning 2025 Sports Guys Iowa Coach of the Year?
Yeah, usually I've got to push the press away anytime I go out in public. They're like, "Hey, are you that guy that won that award?" I'm like, "I am," but I don't know. I don't know if I should have. But no, I wouldn't say life's changed too much other than that. No, and again, myself and our staff, we want to be humble. It's all about that next game. A lot of success last year. At the end of the day, it's what have you done for me lately? And we're in a sport where there's no such thing as moral victories. If you have a close game but don't win, it doesn't really matter. And for us, we got to do whatever we can to make sure our kids are graduating, being successful, doing the right thing off the field, and then on the field, simply winning football games. And so we put in a lot of work. Just looking at the summer, I think I had a couple of days off the entire summer. And our guys, our staff understands we're hoping not to have a day off until December. It's a lot of work moving forward here, and extremely appreciative of all the admin we've got here and my staff. Those guys are working their butts off, and excited to finally get after it here in about a week. And like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. Don't know how things are going to go. Don't know how the results are going to be. Don't know how many games you're going to win or whatever. Hoping obviously you'll go win every single game out there. But I know our guys are at least putting the work in, or our players putting the work in, and hopefully we go see the results for all of our hard work real soon.
Yeah, I'm sure if you got plenty of momentum to build on, and I'm sure there's a big buzz in the city of Oskaloosa to get out and support the Statesmen and be there for that home opener. And then, yeah, you got back-to-back home games and down to Benedictine for what's certainly going to be a tough one. And you got 3 road games in a row and a bye week snuck in there too. Is that kind of something on the schedule that you're like, I'd rather not have that? Or is it just kind of, hey, it is what it is. Well, let's just play ball.
Yeah, personally, this might sound unique, but I'm a big fan of road games. As a coach, I like road games. I think it's easier for myself and for people to kind of lock in and focus in what we got going on. At the same time, I also like having 11 o'clock kickoff at home where I'm just in and out and you're done early. But no, looking at the schedule, I think it suits us well. At the end of the day, again, the next game is the biggest one. The first game is going to be extremely difficult. Graceland, like I said, I think they're going to be a very talented team, ready to go. The next game after that, Missouri Valley College, another team that I think is going to be very talented and ready to go, a team that's going to be hungry, a team that's going to have 1 game extra film on us since we haven't gotten to have, since they're not playing the week 0 game. You mentioned Benedictine, consistently one of the top programs out there. They've got a solid test to start the season, and then facing those guys week 3. And then some other teams in between them and Grandview that literally every single squad we're going against, I've got the mindset they're going to be better than they were a year ago. And it's hard to really tell and evaluate and see where teams are until you kind of are in the thick of things or middle of the season. And so those will be some big tests middle of the season. Got to make sure we're healthy, got to make sure we're ready to go, obviously. And then again, the big one on Halloween, and then a couple big home games after that. And again, as a coaching staff, as a team, we want to do whatever we can to keep playing as long as we possibly can. But this comes down to, again, having this week 0 game, then week 1, week 3, and going on from there. So
I want to talk about Mount Mercy quick, if you don't mind. Have you had any sort of interaction? The coaches around the conference, do they get acclimated to Coach Daniels and his staff at all? What goes into that? Is there any meetings or conventions or anything you guys collaborate at?
Yeah, a little bit. So we'll have conventions generally at the beginning of the year. And then there's heart summits and different meetings that we'll end up having typically throughout the summertime or in spring. And so a number of coaches, if they haven't met them in person, they've met them via Zoom or Teams video conference calls somehow to an extent. Then we'll have email exchanges. I've never been a new head coach to a program like that. I know there's a ton of things that are involved in all of that. And I know Coach Daniels has been a head coach previously, but I'm sure they've got a lot of stuff to work on and figure out. And as a head coach, you don't know what you don't know. And so at the end of the day, I'm sure there's going to be things that pop up with them, and they're in a solid spot. Cedar Rapids, a new program, again, a lot of momentum themselves. I know they played some JV games last year and had a good amount of Iowa kids on the roster. Again, just because they're new to football doesn't mean they're not going to be talented and ready to go this year. And so anxious to get to finally face those guys, see what they're like. Going to have 0 clue what we're going to face schematically, kind of address that question earlier. We've got to be ready to go and have answers for the things that we see. And again, ideally, it just comes down to our guys going out there and executing.
As the season goes on, how do you adapt with keeping players more healthy, like, and keeping it light? Maybe it obviously depends on how maybe results are coming in terms of wins and losses, but do you dial things back a little bit, give them a little more extra rest days? How do you adapt throughout the season with, I guess, how not tough you guys are on guys, but maybe how tough their schedule can be?
Load management's the big word they use.
Load management.
Yeah, 100%. When it comes to overall volume, that's something to kind of play it by ear as a coach. And generally we'll practice Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And as the season progresses, our Tuesday practice, which is also usually a time where you still have some offense and defensive linemen a little bit beat up from Saturday. That's a day where it's just a big learning day. And generally, as the season goes on, we'll kind of cut down on that practice. Wednesdays and Thursdays don't cut down as much, but sometimes maybe the tempo, maybe we're not going as much live, or maybe we're not going as much quote unquote team versus scouts or something, or maybe we're throwing in fun drills. That's a common thing that we'll do throughout the season, kind of lighten up the mood, do something where it's like a punt, pass, kick competition with people that don't typically punt, pass, or kick, and having something that's fun throughout the season. It's ever changing. And I think us as coaches, we've got multiple roles. At times we've got to be a therapist. At times we've got to utilize psychology and help motivate guys and push guys. At times people might use getting beat up or whatever as a crutch and not want to push themselves when we still need to push them. And so there's a lot when it comes to all that stuff. We have a staff meeting every single day. We meet about practice plans every single day. We meet about personnel every single day. That's something where as a staff, again, I think we work well together and we understand where our players at. How do we need to push them? How do we need to kind of take some load off? And it's ever changing. I've had seasons where you have nothing but seniors and your left guard knows exactly what he's doing on every single play. And I've had seasons where your left guard's a true freshman and you might have to adapt and change some things up. And maybe they're not used to college football. You've got to push them a little bit more and get them prepared for Saturdays. And so again, ever changing. At the end of the day, again, that's what we got to do as coaches. Just do whatever we can to set our guys up for success.
Well, we appreciate that, Coach. And I think that's probably a good point to wrap up. We can let you get back to things. We really just wanted to come in and let the fans know about a little bit more about what we can expect from William Penn before they take the field next Thursday. Very exciting home game against Graceland. I believe it's 7 p.m. kickoff.
7 p.m. kickoff. We'll have a light show from Musco and everything. Should be a good atmosphere.
Yeah, get out and support everyone. There's some fun games around the state of Iowa going on. I know Drake's got their season opener. I think Northwestern travels down to Western Illinois. Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. This episode has been brought to you by Van Ag out of Dysart. Protect your yield and improve your fields with Van Ag of Dysart. They offer precision drone applications for fungicides, foliar nutrients, and fast, accurate cover crop seeding. Less damage, more efficiency, and the ability to work when other equipment can't. To learn more, call. He's actually a former William Penn Statesman. He had a cup of coffee on the team about a decade ago. Nate Van Buren at 319-430-3671. Again, Nate Van Buren with Van Ag at 319-430-3671. Coach Benavidez, thanks again for joining us. Best of luck to the Statesmen this season, and excited to follow along on the Urban Edge Network coming up for you. So,
absolutely. Thanks for having me. Go Statesmen.
Yeah, thanks, Coach.